Awesome, thanks for the intro. Hey everyone, welcome to our talk about what comes after BI. Super excited to have you all here. So first of all, just to kick us off, congrats on coming. We're in a pandemic. A lot of people around us are getting COVID, but you still took the effort to come out to a conference and learn, adopt new technology, adopt Databricks, and be part of this community. So first of all, big congrats on being here. And second of all, congrats on adopting the modern data stack. Being a Databricks user and adopting these kinds of technologies that actually make our infrastructure problems easier is really what we call cutting edge. And so it's awesome that you've all taken that leap and are on that journey. And it's a never-ending journey, but the best we can do is start that journey and be on it. And then what that means for you is you probably have some sort of data lake or data warehouse, and that you're ready to now use that to provide value to your business teams. And that's what we're here to talk about today, which is taking that data from that data lake or data warehouse and activating it into where your business teams can utilize it. And so hopefully everyone here is excited to learn about how to get value out of their data and to make an impact using their data. That's what the talk is all about. And we want to give you a good framework for creating impact with data. So to kick off, how many people here have BI or analytics at their company? Just raise your hand if you do. Oh, cool, that's basically everyone. Then, how many people here have business team members that are downloading CSVs from those BI tools in order to use the BI tools? Okay, that's also like a good 80% of the crowd. That's the crux of it. You build an awesome dashboard, a BI report for your business teams, but they look at it once a month, or maybe once a quarter. And then they download that CSV, and that's their primary mode of taking that data and doing something with it. And that's what the old world used to work. That's how it used to work. Databricks actually made that a lot easier. So we're not saying that BI is not a hard problem. Actually, BI is an incredibly difficult problem, and most companies will never, ever stop working on BI. It's probably one of the most important problems in your entire company. But that problem has gotten a lot easier because using Databricks, you actually don't have to go and do all of the infrastructure work to set up your own clusters, your own Spark jobs. You have Databricks instead to run a lot of this infrastructure for you, and you can spin it up on the cloud if you're using Databricks Cloud. And in the past world, after we solve these infrastructure problems with Databricks, a job well done for an analytics team would be to generate those reports and hand them to the business teams so that proactively those business teams could come, see those dashboards, and identify users that are going to churn, or identify high propensity to buy users and then run actions on those. And so those BI, Tableau, and Looker dashboards were the way to operate and provide insight to the business team. And those are still highly functional. But what we're here to talk about is something potentially even more useful that can get data actively into the hands of business users. And so our thesis really is data teams should not stop at reporting. And what we define as reporting is developing the dashboard and handing the dashboard to the business team. And we're here to provide a framework for, instead of reporting, what do you do afterwards? You still do the reporting, and then afterwards you activate the data in order to then actually really show the business team the value of that data in a more real-time, more active, proactive way. And we're really here to create data superheroes. So we do think that data teams are the superhero team of every single company, and they're doing some of the most meaningful work. And in order to get recognized for that and be able to show what that impact is, sometimes we believe that that data has to be in the right places and activated in the right ways in order to create that full impact and in order to be utilized as much as possible by those end business teams. And so maybe one framework to take away today is how often is my data or my report being used, and how real-time is that process? Is it being used just once in a while, or is it powering marketing, fraud, sales campaigns day to day? That's really what we're talking about. And so we have a few different ways to think about that value prop. So imagine a world where the data team was recognized for creating revenue at a company. So it's not just I'm calculating LTV or I'm calculating revenue. It's I make money for the company by understanding these data campaigns. That's actually something that some of our customers are seeing today. For example, Nando's Chicken takes their data science models that identify loyal users, and they send those loyal users specific campaigns that are related to loyalty, which then drives foot traffic, which then drives revenue. So without that LTV or that loyalty calculation, there would be no campaign around loyalty. And the difference here is that because that loyalty campaign is synced directly to end marketing tools, you actually see the business value, or you see the dollars go up on the dashboard that say, loyal users paid more because of this campaign. And here's the difference in revenue because of those loyal users. Similarly, we have users powering live operations using high touch, which means taking data, saying, oh, here's a risky event. We saw that there's a fraudulent transaction. Let me actually send that to my support team, so my support team can call up the user and say, hey, you had a fraudulent transaction. In Databricks, there's a data science model that says this transaction might be fraudulent. Why don't you reach out to the customer and ask them, did they actually pay for this? So imagine being able to do that in real time, but then instead of that being an IT problem or that being a systems problem, it's actually just a data problem. And Databricks is powering the whole backend for that fraud detection, as well as sending the notification for that fraud detection to the end user. And that's what we mean by powering live operations. It could be for support. That's a really common use case. It could be for marketing. It could be for really anything where you want to automate out of the data warehouse what happens next and how the business team then reacts and ideally gets some sort of ticket or some sort of operation to do next. And then lastly, another framework we have is empowering frontline decisions. So right now, a lot of the decision-making is being done by the analytics layer or the data team or the strategy team, whatever you want to call it. What if that data was in the hands of the salesperson or the marketing person, and they can make that decision for themselves? So instead, we're sending all of our product data to our sales CRM, and then our sales folks can actually take that product data and make a decision themselves on which users they want to go tap into, or which users are ready to buy a second or third product from our company. That's the kind of decision-making we think makes sales and all these other business functions really powerful. And you can only do that if they have live data in their tools, which is where we get data activation. So what is data activation? It's the idea of taking data you already have in places like Databricks and activating it into all the other business systems in your company. So imagine all I have to do is change my table in my data lake, in my data warehouse, and boom, that table now reflects as Salesforce contacts, as my marketing users, as my support users, everything. It just reflects everywhere. So I could have an LTV for a customer, and that LTV then propagates all throughout my other systems in my company. And the beauty of something like this is that your central source of truth, your data lake or your data warehouse, actually is your central source of truth because it's propagating that knowledge all the way out. So using a process called data activation, any company can achieve this pretty quickly. It actually doesn't take a lot of effort to set it up. The effort's already been done by you all, which is setting up the data lake, getting data into the data lake, making sense of that data in the data lake. That's 90% of the effort. That's the years of work that you all have already put in. We're simply saying, share it with your business systems. And our company, High Touch, provides a really easy interface and SaaS product for doing that. So it's really about getting that value from that work that you've already done. And as you can see in the diagram, all we're doing is bridging the gap between Databricks and those business systems, like sales and marketing CRMs, ERPs, any sort of customer engagement tool. That's just the line that we added to the diagram because that's where we bridge that gap. And why SAS tools? Why are the SAS tools our destination? It's because in the past, we had actual internal systems where we would then use that data, right? Now, you have hundreds of SAS tools in your company, and each of those becomes a silo for data where people can then make the decisions, but they may not be using the same data set. So our whole idea is that if you're going to adopt all these SAS tools, you want them to be a reflection of a single source of truth, something like a Databricks, and you want to just get that data into those SAS tools in a very seamless way so that all of that decision-making power can then be shared with people living in those SAS tools. So easy way to think of it, you're never going to get your salesperson to log into the Databricks UI. It's just literally not going to happen. If you want them to see something, you give them a looker report traditionally. Well, now we're saying, what if you just get that data into Salesforce directly? Something like number of logins by customers or total orders placed by customers over time. Get that data in Salesforce, and now that salesperson can use that data and operate on it. So that's the idea behind data activation. And I think this part is already kind of clear, but the whole idea is that you really don't have to now write against the APIs of all your SaaS tools. So instead of writing against the Salesforce API or the NetSuite API or the SAP ERP API, you simply use SQL to get the data into all these other places. So an analyst on your team, really anyone that knows SQL in your company, could take their SQL query and send the results of that SQL query to their business systems like Salesforce and do that in a way that takes them really under 30 minutes. So it's not like a months-long problem. It's really an under 30 minutes problem because of the abstraction that we've built. Another way to think of it is reverse ETL, where you think of ETL as the process of getting data into Databricks. We think of reverse ETL as the process of getting data that you have in Databricks shared with business systems in your company. And so it's not a real term. Reverse ETL is just the opposite of ETL when you think about the directionality. But really, it's about the sharing of the data to the business system. So now for the more interesting part of the presentation. We have Dr. Ernie Prabhakar from Nauto here to share how he uses data activation at his company, Nauto, to make a huge impact on the business team. Thanks, Dr. Ernie.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor to be here. It's actually very exciting, considering I've been around the industry for longer than I care to remember. And it was interesting. I started out actually at the doctorate because I got my degree in physics a long, long time ago. How many of you were conscious in 1995? Okay, a few of you may have been born around then. So I was working in big data with high energy physics back before it was called big data, and but then decided it wasn't that much fun. I ended up going into management. What happened was I fell in love with computers. I decided the computers were a lot more fun than just doing physics, and I worked with a technology called Next Computer. And it was really the first modern computer that I would think of today. It had a Unix-based operating system, a very powerful graphical development environment, and it really had this seamless way of interacting with all the data on your computer. And then I went, after I graduated, and worked in a management consulting firm and discovered that businesses that I had thought were these paragons of efficiency and organization compared to academia were basically clueless about how they functioned. And so I ended up joining Apple in 1997. And when I got there, I told them my dream was that Apple would help companies manage data as seamlessly and effortlessly as my Next Computer did on my desktop in 1995. And what I discovered was that Apple actually figured out how to do that. I was there during the second coming of Steve Jobs, and Apple ran like a well-oiled machine. It wasn't perfect. I like to say we were about 5% efficient, but everyone else was 3% efficient, and we just compounded for 20 years. And but I left because we did amazing things at Apple, but I was still challenged by this question of how do we actually help organizations function more effectively? So through a long series of misadventures, I ended up as an IT manager at a startup called Nauto. And Nauto was fascinating because they have a very complicated business cycle. We sell a camera that contains artificial intelligence on the edge that communicates over LTE to an Internet of Things server, and then we have to sell both the hardware and the subscriptions in a complicated enterprise sales process. So we had a system that combined Salesforce and NetSuite and cloud data and wireless data. And before high touch and the modern data stack, our life was an interesting opportunity to observe all the failure modes of the modern organization. Because we had so many moving pieces and so many different silos of data that had to work together. We couldn't just wait once a quarter to reconcile things. We had to do this every day or every week. And so, after a few years of pulling out our hair, we said, okay, there has to be a better way. And I started investigating this thing called the modern data stack and talking to friends in the space. Because what I realized was the reason that my life sucked was because I was building all these narrow bridges between my different data systems. And he said, well, we were already living in this data activation world, but it wasn't this beautiful, elegant world of the modern data stack. It was exactly like, okay, I tell my NetSuite contractor to build all these interfaces over here, and then I tell my Salesforce contractor to build all those interfaces over there, and then I spend a week getting all the pieces to talk to each other, and it's just this, at every single time we have to do something that crosses multiple teams, which is usually multiple times per quarter, we have to go through this huge, massive, complicated dance. And so, the solution was, well, just build another bridge, but you just get more and more bottlenecks. And so the new world we have, I look like this. We're not building bridges, we're owning the lake. And the idea is that we have all the data in one place, we know exactly where it is, what it is, and then we can launch little jets that take exactly the right data and drop it exactly the right place at the right time, and it scales beautifully. Now I have an intern, I can say, hey, I need to build I need to take this data set from the lake into Salesforce, just go ahead and spin up an SQL thing, and it takes them a day to figure out how to do that, rather than taking us 2 weeks to coordinate all the different parties there. I felt a little bad about the militaristic image from Maverick there. A better way of thinking about it is actually data as reconciliation. The idea of enterprise cohesion, being able to make decisions together, is to try to get everyone on the same page about what the current reality is in a way that they can trust, which, as you may have noticed, has been a challenging thing for us as a society over the last year or two. And I like to think that what we're doing here with high touch and the modern data stack is trying to show that it's possible to get people on the same page of the data. This is our Quilt Data Hub, and this for me was really kind of a signature moment, because we had a crisis where we had to do a lot of customer communication based on the fact that we had some software updates that had to be applied across our entire customer base. And so we had to basically do we had just purchased High Touch and got access to Databricks. So we basically did a year's worth of data development in a month. And we used a Quilt Data Hub portal where we would sit down with the team every morning and say, okay, this is the latest current data from all the different places of the business. So we can then send it out to customer success to call people, or into Marketo to email people. And getting that one place where we can reconcile the team around a common set of data, and then from there push it out into exactly their line of business tools. We like to call this data activating humanity. It's helping the human beings be more human, do the things that human beings do best, talk to people, hear their problems, communicate to them in a way that they can take action. And this to me is the real beauty of High Touch. It's designed specifically to enable us to get the right data to the right place at the right time for the right person to make the right decision. And there's a saying we have when I was in marketing at Apple, that the difference between almost the right word and the right word is the difference between lightning bug and lightning. And as you know, the difference between almost the right data to make a decision at almost the right time and the right data at the right time is what we call survival in the startup world, right? And so this is the key, is that this lets us, with much less stress and much greater efficiency, help the people do the things that human beings need to do rather than being slaves to the data, which is where we can often end up in. And I like to talk about this as the human value of machine learning. I think that's been a common theme today in a lot of the sessions I've been to, starting with the keynote, is like, hey, the machine learns, but do the people learn? Does the system learn? Does the business learn? And the great thing about this is there's a deep joy that comes when you know that the work you're doing is not just sitting in a report somewhere, it's delivering customer value, people willing to pay for the fact that they're getting better service. It delivers business value. We are all working together better as human beings because we understand each other and we're able to operate out of the same shared sense of reality. And just the personal value of knowing that the work I did today actually made other people's lives better. And I think that's why I'm really grateful for the chance to be here, to be part of this community, be part of this session, and share with you this transformation that we have gone through. Do you want me to do the call to action here, or do you want to come up and breathe? I'll hand it back off to you. Thank you very much.
That was incredible. I'm humbled to even share a stage with Dr. Prabhakar. So thanks so much for coming to our talk. We're down at the booth area if anyone wants to come meet the team. Always really excited to not sell you High Touch, but just to talk about data. Like for us, we've been data architects for a long time. We really enjoy talking about data problems and data solutions. So come by and just say hi. And our product marketing team wanted us to share one thing with you, which is that we did launch writing back all of our observability to the warehouse. So one thing that we've been really excited about is, as we claim, right, the source of truth actually should be in the warehouse. So High Touch doesn't really store any data for you whatsoever, but it does have logs of everything that we've done, right? So even those logs, we said those shouldn't be in the High Touch UI. Those should now be in the warehouse. So we started writing those back, and that's something that the product management team wanted for everyone here to learn about, which is that encourage all your SAS tools to write back to the warehouse and let that remain the actual place where truth is stored, because it's better for everyone. Thanks for everyone's time, and happy to take any questions.
Hello, my name is Stella. I'm wondering, what does the level of personalization of the, what's the word? Oh no, like not the commands, what you're sending back to the SAS tools, like how can you customize and personalize those in to appear in the SAS tools?
Yeah, so it's all powered by SQL. And so the SQL query you give the data activation tool is actually what will determine what data is pulled from the data lake. And so that's where most of the customization happens. You could say something like last 30 days users in this day based on like these attributes of those users. But then additionally, there's a lot of governance that you might want to do. So you might want to make sure that PII does not go through. You might want to make sure that the person that's activating the data can actually see the data they're activating. So there's all that functionality too to personalize the experience for this person sitting on that tool. And then the interface is actually really simple. So you have columns in your SQL query. You simply map the columns in your SQL query to the columns in your SAS tool, kind of like an ORM. And then HighTouch will check for when the data already exists and update the data. And when it doesn't exist, it'll insert the data. So it has all that kind of like functionality to like toggle the knobs where you can choose how you want the data to appear. So if you wanted, you could say, don't actually update anything, only insert data. Or you could say, update only, don't insert. Like, so there's all those operators. But it's in a pretty simple GUI that always maps from column to column.
Right, and then as an aside to that, if you want to do more extensive customizations and personalization, we're sitting on top of a data lake. And so what we've done is we'll do a Python notebook that generates per customer metrics and actually a box file. And then we create a table summarizing that data, and then we pass those URLs and those links through HighTouch out to our Salesforce Marketo system so that those can be emailed directly to customers. And so we have very simple, direct connections through HighTouch, which can be built on top of very sophisticated data analyses. I think everyone's ready to go leave and attend the parties.
And the party, yeah. Oh, speaking of, we have a party at 9:30 p.m. at Local Edition. It's called Data After Dark, and we'd love to see everyone there.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you again, Dr. Ernie and Kashish. Thank you.